For over 15 years, VirtueZone has been the premier corporate services provider here in the UAE. So when the corporate tax announcement came out, it made perfect sense for us to launch an efficient and affordable tax and accounting brand, and that's when TaxReady was born. It's been a huge success. We've grown from 0 to nearly 10,000 clients in the space of just 2 years, and most of that has been through partnering with Wafeq as well. Wafeq has been a real enabler for TaxReady. We grew from 0 to thousands and thousands of clients in the space of 2 years. So it was really important for us to have a partner or a provider that enabled not just us to scale massively, but also our clients as well, to ensure that all the compliance deadlines are met, the accounting is done correctly, so that we can get all of those tax filings and compliance done correctly. The inspiration really came when the corporate tax announcement was made. I think that was back in 2022. We realized that this was the first time that every single company in the UAE now had to actually do financial reporting and actually file a tax return. Prior to that, certain companies had to do that, but this was the first time with corporate tax that every company had to do it. And we realized very quickly that there was a huge gap in the market of these small and micro-sized companies that don't have their own internal accounting team. They don't have an existing accounting firm. They just need, really, I wouldn't say simple, but simplified services, just compliance, accounting, just getting the service done and making sure they're compliant at a really effective or rather economic price point. There was no accounting firm providing that service or targeting that market, and that has always been the segment that VirtueZone operates in, so it was natural for TaxReady to launch and target that segment, and that's still where the majority of our clients come from today. The biggest challenge that companies face when setting up in the UAE, so on the initial stages, the formation side, it's navigating the very complex market in the UAE, and when I say market, I mean the jurisdictions. So there's 60 plus free zones in the UAE, obviously the mainland, there are offshore zones. So the initial step is actually getting it right in terms of actually where a company is based and actually navigating that formation process. Then of course there is the big tax considerations. So making sure that they are set up in a way that they can get tax exemptions if those are available to them, or minimize their tax bill. All of those decisions need to be made, they need to be made in an informed manner right at the start, because if they set up in the wrong way at the very start, that has lots of negative repercussions down the line. Then once they are set up, obviously it's the ongoing compliance is the tough part. So ensuring that all the tax deadlines are met, corporate tax filings are done, accounting is done correctly so that they can actually file these things. And of course, aside from that, there are all of the other non-tax compliance pieces. So AML, anti-money laundering, all of the free zones now have regular compliance checks. So that's a service that we provide as well. So ensuring that, from pre-foundation all the way up to running the business and being compliant, all of that we cover between VirtueZone and TaxReady. The way TaxReady complements VirtueZone is, if you look at the segment in which VirtueZone really operates, which is that mainly small, medium enterprise and micro business. These companies, they don't have the employees or they don't have the budget to go and hire staff to manage things like accounting and tax and compliance. And so it's almost a necessity for there to be a firm like TaxReady, which provides these services at a really economic cost, so that these companies don't have to go and spend 50,000 dirham to do a tax return, right? They can pay a fraction of that, knowing that they have a much simpler tax process to be done. They can simply, especially for our existing VirtueZone customers, they can just leverage TaxReady's knowledge and TaxReady's really economic pricing and get this done very quickly and very simply. And to this day, the majority of VirtuZone clients also use TaxReady services. And we have a huge number of clients from outside VirtuZone who are starting to use TaxReady as well, because it really is that segment of the market that is in such need here, is that really economic and simple tax and accounting service. The tax landscape in the UAE is it's a unique and quite interesting one if you're interested in tax. So for a lot of the tax regime, the UAE has been able to borrow from existing tax regimes all over the world, the UK, Saudi Arabia, everywhere. But where the UAE is different and is unique is in the free zone regime. I don't think there's any other country in the world that has such a extensive free zone setup, and that is the part where a lot of the legal changes or call them tweaks, or that's where a lot of it evolves. I mean, we know that corporate tax is corporate tax, right? But how it gets applied in the UAE is what's always changing, especially around those free zones. Now, thankfully, the Federal Tax Authority and the Ministry of Finance here in the UAE are very clear around clarifications. They're very clear around when they're changing a rule. And so it's as simple as making sure that we're on top of that and making sure that, if a client is with us, we take responsibility for ensuring that they are compliant with all of those changes. So it's probably the largest responsibility that we have to our clients, is ensuring that as the tax regime evolves, we make sure that our clients are always evolving along with that, and we take responsibility for it. Previously, I would have said, in the past, the biggest challenge that companies face here when it comes to accounting and tax is being able to find a affordable partner, right? So their options were previously, hire an accountant themselves, which is crazy. If someone only has 2 employees already, they're not going to go and hire an accountant. Or they go to one of the traditional firms like a Big Four or a second tier and spend tens of thousands of dirhams for relatively simple services. Obviously, that is now changed. Now that a firm like ours, is TaxReady, is in the market, and so now they are able to access good advice, really good accounting services, and tax compliance for a fraction of that cost. So really, I wouldn't say that there are significant challenges anymore, because all they have to do is have knowledge of a firm like ours, and it's the same that it works all over the rest of the world, right? There are services now that match all the requirements, or providers that match all that full level of service that those firms require. So it is very difficult to be across all of the tax laws, the evolving tax laws, the accounting requirements yourself. If you're the owner of a business, right, you can't be expected to be running your business and be across all that stuff as well. But now there is a economic and simple option for them to outsource that to someone like us and take over that challenge. When we are looking at the volume of companies that we look after, it has to be system driven, right? We can't operate on a model of just keep the client's deadlines in your head and hope that you remember, right? So we monitor everything very closely. When we onboard a client, all deadlines, licenses, everything is tracked in our system so that we never miss a deadline. We're very proud about our responsibility for client fines or missing deadlines. If a client comes with us, then that's on us, and so we have to be very, very methodical around how we track all of these compliance deadlines. So it's all system driven. We obviously use Wafeq as our accounting provider, which ensures that everything is done correctly from an accounting perspective, and then we have our own internal systems which track all of the deadlines, compliance requirements, everything like that. We started using Wafeq very early in our journey. Originally, when it was just VirtuZone providing the services, and then when we became TaxReady, when the business started growing, Wafeq we partnered with very early on in all of this. I think there are two main parts that have been invaluable to us. One is the functionality for the price. So an issue that we found with most other providers when they weren't local providers is that they were charging a premium for things like multi-currency accounting, right? Which in the UAE, every company requires. So it's crazy that we were being asked to pay a premium for something which is just a basic requirement in the UAE. And we saw that Wafeq had identified that, and being a regional provider had a perfectly suited product for the regional requirements, and it was just the right price point for us as well, which is a huge benefit. It enabled us to scale incredibly quickly, which we had to do. We went from zero to thousands and thousands of clients in the space of a year. So the one part was the functionality. The other part is the support as well. So again, being a local, or a regional provider, we're able to get that sort of real-time support, which for us, when we're talking about tax deadlines and VAT filing deadlines, to be able to speak to the team in real time and get issues solved in real time, I don't know what we would have done had we not been able to do that through Wafeq. So for us, it's been, the partnership with Wafeq has been a real key part of our success in growing so quickly. Accounting is a game of don't mess up, right? And the fact that Wafeq works, right? And we don't have issues with it. It is simple to use, which means that for us, growing at the rate that we did, we were able to onboard not just clients, but also staff and accountants to provide the service and have them onboarded so quickly and up and running within a week. For catching all of these clients coming in is a huge benefit to us. And like I said, the functionality in terms of, as a accounting provider, as an accounting firm, the features around billing, the features around providing portfolio services to a large number of clients has been a huge benefit to us, right? Because part of, I don't want to talk about the actual accounting system because we all know that Wafeq is good and it works, but as a accounting firm, it's all of those management or system management features that are a huge benefit to us. Advice we're giving to businesses to scale is, I try and think of what are the real substantial, not sort of, not generic terms like, dream big and things like that, but a lot of it is the real basic things. So cash flow, you need to be on top of it, right? International operations, you need to be aware of things like withholding taxes in other countries, because all of these things really eat into your margin, especially when you're a small company, right? All of this ties into them being across their financials. I guess as an accountant, I'm a little bit biased, so it all comes back to being across your finances, be across your financing. So how are you planning to finance your expansion? What are you planning to cost? What's the cost of that to be? And of course, everyone's talking about regions, right? So we know that the UAE is absolutely booming, right? Everyone's always talking about Saudi as well, but I think people don't try and grow too quick, right? We know that the UAE has a huge market itself. I have seen clients be a little bit guilty of trying to expand into other markets before they've actually got a hold on the UAE, and it hasn't worked so well. So yeah, it's always about timing, right? But timing is a informed decision, and you've got to be across all of those basic things like your financials before you actually can make that proper informed decision and get the timing right for your expansion.